Hi everybody, this is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts. This is an extra episode. We're actually going to be talking about the controversy of Nanotyrannus. So basically we're going to go through history, and also we're actually going to go through basically one side and the other side, basically, on terms of the controversy. Let's start out with the history. The history of this controversy started out in 1942, where a skull was found in Montana in the Hell Creek Formation, and basically this skull is actually in the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, and so but back then scientists thought that this was actually another species of Albertosaurus. But at that time, they always thought that certain dinosaurs probably did live in the same time in the same place by bunching a bunch of dinosaurs together into one formation. And so basically they thought, like, well, this is probably an Albertosaurus species that probably actually lived alongside Tyrannosaurus Rex, Triceratops, and all that sorts of stuff. But then this find was actually put into the back shelves of the museum, and basically was never actually studied after that. But it wasn't until the 1980s is when Robert Bacher, Phil Curry, and Pete Larson actually came up with the idea that this is a new species of dinosaur. And so they gave it the name Nanotyrannus lancensis. And so, but then it wasn't until the mid-90s it was when scientists started to say, no, this is not a new species. This is probably a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex, just because the bones are not even fused together totally yet. Because the juvenile bones, they're in the skull, their bones are actually really, really loose, and they're not really well connected together. And so this would actually be a juvenile. And so this debate has continued on throughout the 2000s and even today. But even though most scientists actually would agree that this is actually more of a juvenile, this is actually a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex. And so this is actually a very big debate in the paleontological community. And so it's a big controversy. And also, let's actually take a look at one side. Let's actually talk about the side that actually believes that Nanotyrannus is its own species. The scientists that believe that Nanotyrannus is actually its own species basically would say that, first of all, the skulls are actually very different from Tyrannosaurus Rex and the skull. And so basically an adult Tyrannosaurus Rex and some juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rexes that were actually kind of found, that were basically compared to, thought that, wait a minute, this is not a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex. Because you see, the skull is really elongated, and basically the teeth are very blade-like, and so how can you change your teeth, and also how can you change the snout to getting shorter and shorter as you actually grow older? And so basically that would have actually been one difference between the species. Another is actually there's a spot in the back of the skull where I think it's called the squamosal, and it's a bone that is actually in the back of the skull, and basically there's a tiny little pit basically right on that bone, whereas a Tyrannosaurus Rex really doesn't have that. And basically some juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rexes kind of show that they don't have this either. But even though some scientists actually would say that this is actually still a new species, and we don't even know what this thing is in the back of the skull. Is it just like a little pit? Was it a bite mark? Was it like a little, maybe like a dent in the bone where basically it got hit by, it actually kind of got its skull hit its head right there and basically left a dent in the bone. But even though that's very doubtable about that, but even though they say this is a characteristic of a new species. But also another reason why some people think it's actually its own species is basically the CAT scans of the Cleveland skull. And basically they actually looked at the brain case, and they actually see that the brain the shape of the brain is actually very different than Tyrannosaurus Rex is as an adult. And so they actually think that basically that the brain is actually a little bit larger in comparison to the size of the animal. And also they actually say that that the brain is actually positioned differently than Tyrannosaurus Rex. And so basically, they believe that the skull is actually positioned very differently as well. So that would make it its own species. So they actually thought that, because you see, Tyrannosaurus Rex's skull would actually could have been more straight on, whereas Nanotyrannus would actually be more like this. And so they actually believe that you can't change that throughout your growth spurt. And so they believe that this is a different animal. So tooth configuration, skull configuration, and also the shape of the brain, and also where the brain is positioned. That's where some people actually believe that this is actually, that Nanotyrannus is its own species. But also there's a find called the Fighting Dinosaurs, where it's a ceratopsian and a tyrannosaur that are actually fossilized together. And basically, if you saw this documentary of Fighting Dinosaurs in National Geographic last year, they actually were talking about the differences of that Tyrannosaurus specimen compared to Tyrannosaurus Rex and also other juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex specimens. And so they believe that also another part is that the arms are longer and bigger than an adult Tyrannosaurus Rex. And so they believe that this dinosaur probably had stronger arms. But let's actually look into the side where basically they say it's a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex. One is that the skull is actually the skull bones are not fused together. So basically that actually would explain that. Basically comparing that to an adult is basically showing that this is not an adult. You see, the skull bones are actually very loose, and so they haven't been fused together, and so that actually shows that this is probably juvenile. Another thing is basically on Jack Horner's theory about that as dinosaurs kept growing, their features start to change. And so, like, the skulls would change, the teeth would change, the parts of the brain could change, and also the muscle configurations would actually change. And so they believe that the skull got shorter and shorter, the snout got shorter and shorter, and basically the teeth got thicker and thicker as the animal grew to an adult. And so they believe that as it grows older, it would lose teeth, and also would actually start to actually get stronger jaws. And also another thing would actually be is that the arms would never grow throughout its adult life when it starts becoming adult. Thinking about that tyrannosaur that actually has longer arms compared to other tyrannosaurs, and so basically they would say like the arms would probably pretty much just stay at that size, but it would stay where they were, but even though the body size would actually get larger and larger. And so that would mean that it would grow in mass, and also that the arms musculature would actually sort of change a little bit. And so that would actually be one characteristic of that, basically, that this is a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex. But also there's a there's a Tyrannosaur that was found named Jane. That's in a museum in Illinois. It's in a museum in Illinois. I can't remember. I think it's called the Berkey Museum, if I remember correctly. But it actually kind of almost resembles the Cleveland skull. But even though scientists still believe that this is actually just a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex, because it's actually 11 years old when it died, and it would actually be right at the beginning of the growth spurt of Tyrannosaurus Rex, because Tyrannosaurus Rex started its growth spurt basically around 11, 12 years old, and basically it just skyrocketed throughout the teenage years until it basically stopped growing by like age 18 or 19 years old. So basically kind of like humans. And so it actually is very difficult to say on whether or not this is an adult or not. And so basically they actually can say that this is a juvenile, because some of the bones are not even fused together. So basically it would actually still be a juvenile, and so it would actually be a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex. And so those would actually be the things that would actually say that this is not a new species, it's actually juvenile. And so that kind of thing. Now, where I sit on with this is basically I'm right in between. I'm open-minded about this topic. You see, I'm okay with whether if it's a juvenile or if it's its own species. I don't really care that much of whether or not of what it really is. So basically, I actually just say that whatever it is, I'll accept it. That's basically how it is. And basically, most scientists say that's a juvenile, and so basically that would actually be the case where I would probably be leaning towards that it's a juvenile. But even though there are some scientists that still say no, Nanotyrannus is its own species, so we're actually going to continue to say that it's its own species, is because there's so many differences between Tyrannosaurus Rex, and also we got some juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rexes that are basically found that are very different from the Cleveland skull. And basically, that's really going to be tough because you see, there was the only thing that was found of this find in 1942 was the skull. There was no vertebrae, no ribs, no limb bones, no tail bones. I mean, it's just pretty hard to actually figure out where this. But even though I think scientists should I think what paleontologists can try to do is find out where the Cleveland skull was actually found in the Hell Creek Formation of Montana, and then basically if they actually find anything new or right around that area, then basically they can actually possibly say that maybe this animal actually was killed very young by basically another tyrannosaur, or otherwise it just died really, really young, that sort of thing. But basically that's up in the air right now. So basically I'm right in between this debate. I'm kind of like right in the middle. There is some people that are like on the juvenile side, and then basically there's people on the Nanotyrannus side. So basically it's pretty much up in the air for me. But even though either way I think it's actually still a good looking specimen, and basically who knows what can actually come up in the Hell Creek Formation. Alright, that's it for now. Now tomorrow would actually be the special episode, and so it looks like we're going to be talking about Cosmoceratops. So basically get ready for that special episode, and basically you can follow this show by actually going on the Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts of Dino Chris. Like the page, you can actually look at all the videos that I actually have on there. Basically, they're all links to the YouTube page that I actually have. So basically, keep on looking on there, and also you can subscribe my YouTube page. So basically, look up for Christopher Grawl. That's my full name, and basically, you can actually see that there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex picture for the profile picture, and basically you can actually subscribe to my show. And basically the subscriptions are free, so basically there's no worry about buying it or anything like that. That's not what I want to do. So basically like that. But and luckily I'm getting some questions for the answering questions episode that will happen the Sunday. I think it's the 25th of September. So that'll actually happen. So the answering questions episode will actually happen on September 25th. But even though you can still send me questions about dinosaurs or any other prehistoric life by emailing me at dinochrist71@gmail.com, or let us go on my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts of Dino Chris. Like the page, you can post your questions in the comment section on any Facebook post. I don't mind if you actually do write on the wall of the page, and basically send me your questions that way, because that would actually be a lot better. But also remember to leave your first name and also where you're from, so that way I can actually read the question out loud, and also the fans could actually know where the question came from. And basically I'm not giving you your full name, I'm just giving you your first name. So basically simple as that. And also you can follow me on Twitter at CSGRILL. That's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff on there. Also take care of the people around you. And also for younger people out there, make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. Those are the best motivation you can have for good education. It's very important to have a good education, because with a good education you do a good job in the future. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.